The views and opinions expressed by contributors on the Spoon River Gothic podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the host. Material heard on the Spoon River Gothic podcast is intended for adult listeners. This podcast deals with mature topics that may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised. This is Spoon River Gothic, narrative of a double homicide.
So, how you doing? How's your day going?
It's good, man. Yeah, I'm glad to see about the success with your podcast and stuff. It's a pretty interesting story, undoubtedly. I mixed opinions all the time. Started early with just the comments alone was enough to just kind of sour me, all things considered. But
yeah, it was pretty rough at the beginning.
It was, man. Yeah, I can't imagine. People are rough. This is a tough community in that aspect.
No, I know. The next season, I think it'll be a little easier. Yeah, because I think Canton's pretty special when it comes to how rough it can be.
Oh, I would definitely not say any different about that. There's no place I'd rather be able to say I'm from. But there's a time that they do have a chance, or a tendency to be a little bit more judgmental maybe than some others. And I've been all over the place. So it's always seemed that way. But yeah, it's definitely special.
So you were born there?
Yes, sir. Yeah, born and raised.
Yeah, me too.
Yep, June 6, 1974.
It's cool that it's off the cuff, don't worry.
Right on.
Natural.
I like that. Well, any reaction I have, I promise you, will certainly be that.
All right.
I'm not one to prep for anything, so.
Yeah. So, what's your relationship to Canton as far as, living your life there with trouble and stuff like that?
There's been no shortage of that in my life, undoubtedly.
You ended up in jail with Donnie, right?
Yes, sir, I did. Yeah, man. Yeah. That was actually probably maybe not my first, but my first long visit, where I ended up staying an extended amount of time and entered DOC. I was charged at 17. That's when I would have met Donnie then. He was basically my first cellie, I guess you would say. Yeah. It wasn't supposed to turn out the way it did, I don't think, to be honest. Just because I have a tendency to say what's on my mind. I run my mouth a lot. I always had a problem with authority, so they weren't very nice to me out the door, and I think that's why I ended up getting thrown in the cell with him, because he had just gotten there and he was just kind of thrashing stuff and people. He just wasn't very happy,
Yeah, I'm sure. And what was he in? What was he in for at that time?
That's when he just got hemmed up for the incident with lady and her daughter, I guess it was, right?
Yeah, he was already in jail for this thing with the girl Valerie out of.
If I'm not mistaken, he'd already been there. I mean, we're talking. This was what, 92?
93.
93. Yeah, because I should have just graduated. Yeah, I'm terrible with dates, but it just happened to be one that I'm not mistaken. I'm almost sure because we were actually in a bigger pod at once, if I remember right. I think Donnie was already there. He was in a 2-man cell, if I remember right.
How old were you?
I was 17. Tried as an adult, and that's left for prison.
That's young.
Yeah, I was young. Too young for that shit. But it is what it is.
Donnie was 10 years older than you at the time, something like that.
Oh yeah, he'd have been a lot older. As far as his age and all that, I remember him really well because I spent a lot of time with him. And I guess I'd heard mention of him in a couple of people that I hung out with and stuff back then, but it's kind of different to meet him under the circumstances, I guess. But we just kind of, for whatever reason, he liked me. And he didn't seem like he really liked anybody because of what was going on and shit. For a big duty, that guy cried a lot and shit. I never really jumped to conclusions or anything then, even, but. Of course, I have my opinions now, but I remember this guy was like a savage. He was huge, and matter of fact, I was supposed to graduate. Said, I was 17 years old, and I was probably 195 pounds, probably about as heavy as I've ever been in my life. And I think in the mechanical weight room, I think the bench press was 265 pounds, and I used to stand on it, and that dude would do reps, and it would leave the floor every time he stretched out. It was insane. Like, he was just freakishly strong. With a lot of the opinions that are probably out there, others, it's hard to come to my own conclusions, but I can tell you that if I hadn't met him, my life would have been a whole lot different. Because I was 17 years old, I was getting ready to go to prison, I had no idea what I was getting into. And Donnie had been, he'd pretty well seen the ropes and shit like that, with some of his background, so he just basically told me the truth. What was going to happen and what I was going to have to do, and just that and the other. And had he not said that, then it would have been a long, slow road for a pretty 17-year-old boy.
So you feel like your life changed meeting him because of the guidance he gave you, how to navigate the legal system? Or?
Not necessarily to navigate the legal system, but to navigate the fucking jungle. I mean, which was prison then, when I was 17. I mean, I'm pretty now. You should see me, Cory. You should have saw me 17. But, I mean, I was, I couldn't grow hair on my body, so it would have just been bad, man. I just have no doubt in my mind that I knew what I was facing, and I already, I knew what wasn't going to happen. So if I hadn't been ready for that, then there wouldn't have been there would have been no fighting. I wouldn't have had a chance. So I'm actually kind of grateful that I crossed paths with him. But
you didn't know him before prison?
We weren't friends on the street or anything like that. No, he was in the game. I mean, at that point, he'd been around a lot of things that I hadn't, but I mean, I was just kind of young and in the game, but not like he was, As far as his affiliations with whatever, probably biker clubs and stuff like that back in the day, which is cool. He didn't really talk about that stuff a lot, but I mean, it was obviously there,
So tell me what kind of guy you got an impression that he was. I know you were in a jail cell, so you have to be a certain way when you're in jail. But
yeah, man. Yeah, I like to think I'm a pretty good judge of character, although my record probably wouldn't reflect that. My police record, anyway. But I mean, I was just taught not to necessarily judge or let the legal system handle it or whatever was out of my hands. He only had to make it. He had to make it right with one person in my mind, and it wasn't me. So. And this guy was big, like I said, and he stunk sometimes. So my grandma, of course, being who she is, she's like, well, get his laundry and shit, 'cause nobody's doing his laundry, So 2 days a week, my grandma does laundry, and they brought him new underwear and stuff like that. So he didn't get treated like a murderer in the cell, but he didn't act like one either. It's kind of hard not to develop some opinions about that, man. Whether I think he did it or not. I mean, it's hard to even be vocal about that, really. All things considered, because it's been something this town's had hanging over for a long time. So if they add any more shit to that, I just never really voiced any opinion and stuff like that, I guess. But
he didn't speak about any of that to you?
The same thing you hear from a lot of guys. I mean, it was the innocence deal, I really didn't do it and all that shit. But it definitely had a different feel to it. And he didn't weep like a guy that just killed someone. But I just don't. It didn't add up for me. A lot of things didn't add up back then, though. I mean, it was a weird time for Fulton County. It was election time. That's a big deal for them, probably, too. I would imagine at the time, It is a big deal. But
his dad was running for sheriff at that time.
Which is, God, dog. See, they've always leaned towards some things, but again, it's one of them things that's just never really been my place. I like to. In my opinion, I don't think Donnie did. I mean, I think if anybody's going to ever probably find out the truth, obviously it's going to be you. But
yeah, I don't even know if I'm going to, but I will tell you, though, that as I go through the case, I mean, it feels like a stretch, really. So, I mean, all they really did is mostly just gather character profile on him and then say, well, he's the kind of person that...
Going back to
he's the kind of person
we have a tendency to do that, man. For some reason, right here, that happens a lot more than. I mean, they know everything about you. They're plants. A lot of times, you can't look a certain way or ride your bike a certain time, or just odd things like that. They're a little quicker to pass judgment, I guess, than other places that I've been from one coast to the other. It's just always been that way, and I just kind of got used to it, and accepted it. Things are a little different now. I give a lot less of a shit, so it's like. Long hair and stuff like that just wouldn't have fit then because it wasn't how it was supposed to go down.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, like the judgment of the area, which I'm very aware of from my own experiences, but how do you think that affects the policing there, or like the way that the police treat people and why people get a fair shake?
I mean, I wouldn't. there's a lot of people here, a lot of officers and stuff that I'll probably give a hard time or even said things about, but for the most part, I mean, there's been a lot of fair ones too, and I've had some experiences with them. But I've also had experiences with the other. You know what I mean? It went as far as to like hold a vial of cocaine in front of me when I'm 19 years old and I just got out of prison and be like, we found this in the car when you got out, digging for information. You know what I mean? Like, no one wasn't mine and it wasn't even in the car, but like you're trying to throw me under some crazy bus right now, and that's happened more often than not. It's been a long time, but of course I move a little different now. I've been having trouble a long time, but shit, you just never know, I guess. For the most part, the judgment thing maybe does kind of brush off from some of the community and whatnot. Some of the people kind of leading the way, I guess. It seems to have already voiced their opinions, and it just kind of trickles downhill after that, I guess. People carry their opinions a lot of times, you know?
Yeah. Do you think certain people get targeted maybe because of their social status or their family or their last name, stuff like that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've had that conversation with other people as well. I don't know. I'm no Boomer Grigsby, but I wasn't necessarily a bad kid by any means, and I'd done some things and whatnot. Things could have went a little bit differently for me had some of that been a little bit softer. But again, you know, I was always in the wrong, so I did something wrong. But being tried when I was, the way I was, every other little thing that led up to it, like being thrown in a bowl of Donnie, who I'm assuming that they probably would have thought was just going to crash me, you know, being some young kid. So, but again, I had a problem with authority, so I had a big target on my back, I think, as far as that goes.
So are you related to Boomer?
Oh yeah, first cousin.
I used to be friends with him when we were young, yeah.
I'm just older and better looking.
I think I was a grade ahead of him.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, he's a good kid. Oh, for sure. Always was. The hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one a lot like him actually now, wrestling in Iowa. Has the same work ethic, but he's got a little bit more brains than Dad, I guess.
So as far as Donnie goes, do you think it is possible he was a scapegoat? I mean, just like maybe like the best person to put down for this because they already had a desire to get rid of him, to get him out of the county. Yeah, definitely, 100%. I think that had more to do with that than anything. And his credibility didn't have any. He didn't have a lot of people coming to his rescue or anything like that. So, I mean, he was just let's just knock him in the head and drag him back to the jail. Kind of the deal. This was kind of how I looked at it. I don't think he killed those people. I wouldn't go as far as to say I bet my own life on it, but I'm not far from that. That's how convinced I am that he didn't. Maybe I'm not the greatest judge of character, but I really don't think he did. He just didn't. I mean, I've seen people. I've been around a lot of people that have murdered people and whatnot. He don't fit that bill. Even though he's a savage, I think he fit the bill, just not the way that he was led to fit it, you know? Mm-hmm. So he had this history with women, this bad history with women, like a lot of violence and stuff on him. It is like a big jump though from being a sexual offender to being a murderer. But,
yeah. But yeah, that's a pretty, I mean, that's a big, it's not a fine line between those two, you know? But, yeah. See, I would have never even known that he was, I mean, if he was a registered sex offender, if that's the case, if that's what you were getting at, I wouldn't have even known that. But I knew he had problems with women, but some of the women that he fucked around with, their ex-boyfriends and stuff like that, it's easy to say some things and bend some things and make some things out to be the way they're not when somebody already has a history of being, just diving right into those things. Ain't nobody going to question that. It's like, it's just it's an easy scapegoat, like you said, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're guilty before you even get a chance to speak, pretty much. If you ain't got nobody on your side, then you're really fucked, you know?
Yeah. Can you give me a vivid memory of him, like when you were in the jail with him? I mean, just something particular about him?
Yeah, his size, man. He was just fucking huge. And you could tell he didn't like to talk a lot. I mean, just by the way he talks, like he just wasn't one for small talk. But and that's just another thing that he kind of turned into the guy that was. You know what I mean? The people that I knew that knew him were like, it's not a lot like him. But when you're in the most pain, you're the closest to the God of your understanding. So I guess maybe he was going through some of that, but I really just don't think that he did that.
Mm-hmm. What about his eyes?
Well, you could say he had crazy eyes, but it was more like it wasn't something that alarmed me, to be honest with you. It was something more kind of slow kick. Like he was trying to think about what he was going to say, maybe, and he looked blank, but it didn't look scary to me. But it could be seen like that. I think, like I think he was shifting gears when he looked that way.
Yeah, because some people look like assholes on the outside, but they're really nice on the inside. You can't really judge somebody by the way their face looks.
Yeah, no. There's only one person that has the right to judge. And fortunately, for people like me, you never will. Hopefully, it's later than sooner.
So I'm curious if you do have any other theories, just what they might be. Even if they're just like even things you've just pondered or even considered.
Man. I've thought about that some from time to time, but I don't have the interaction that you do. So I need to go back and catch up, man. I hate to think that I'll come up with new theories theories like I'm a fucking scientist or so. No, man, I'd love to be able to put that to rest if it's something that didn't happen, and something in my heart tells me that it didn't happen that way. But there's a lot of possibilities. So, and I think the deeper you get looking at them, the more connected some of them are as far as possibilities, and it makes more sense. But I think with what you've probably got now, and before I would really let go of any of that, I think it'd be best for me to catch up a little bit. Small to minute.
What do you think of this project? Like, what's the best thing that could result from this project? Even if we don't figure out who did it,
Well, I hope somebody out there, surely there is somebody else had to have had a good experience with it. Because there's nothing special about me, and I'm not the only dude in the world that had a different experience with Donnie. And I don't think it was because he knew he was going to jail for forever, or he was going to die, or whatever. But it just wasn't really like that. But then again, like I said, he wasn't savage, and he fit that part, man. And I could see that somebody tell you got crazy eyes enough times, and you're probably going to snatch somebody up, and then all of a sudden that shit has a different meaning, A lot of people are victims of stuff like that. But, like you said, the profiling that I think was done on him was pretty substantial in what happened with him, because he didn't have anybody on his side. Everybody they immediately hated him. This community was the perfect fit for that. They just immediately just shredded him. He never had a sketch of hope. You could see it. I think he knew it, and that was what was the worst part. Because he just didn't tell me he didn't do it like a guy that did it. And I've had a lot of guys tell me he didn't do it, and I thought they all did it. So what makes him any different, I'm not real sure. And I don't know what he's capable of or what he did beyond that. Like I said, we weren't friends until we got there. So we just crossed paths at a time that I guess I needed him, and he needed somebody to listen to the shit he was laying on me. But I just really don't feel like he did it. I don't know, maybe somebody has something good to say about him. Because he really does kind of, somebody would say his name, and a lot of times I kept those stories to myself, because it was like the opinions I was already hearing, when they fought back to that, it was like just guilty all over again. It's kind of fucked up, man. He's passed now, right? Is Donnie deceased?
Yeah, he died in 2002 of a heart attack, like 2 weeks before his clemency hearing of a heart. Yeah, he was 38.
I'll be damned. Yeah, I actually had heard that. Now that you say that, man, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's kind of strange itself, really.
I didn't say it. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. You did, and I knew what happened to him. But I don't know, man. It's nice to hear somebody else say that. And I figured you.
Yeah, well, I know there's a pattern. There's a pattern with people who just drop dead right after they're let out of prison, or right before they get let out of prison. I mean, it's there.
Yeah, man. This is one place in the world, and I'm not going to come try to connect a bunch of dots. Because I'm probably going to be one. I'm not ready for a dirt nap right now. So a lot of my opinions, some of them I keep to myself for the most part. But that's a whole fucked up deal, man, in its own. But if that's the first one, if something like that's happened too from here, then
no, actually there was another guy from Central Illinois who got put on death row the same month that Donnie did, and they both died within like 2 weeks of each other, the same cause, and they both had a clemency hearing within a couple weeks of their death. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not trying to connect the dots with it either, but it's just hard.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, hey, you're in Colorado at least, or New Mexico, or Arizona, or
I'm in Mexico City right now.
God, dog, man. Kevin, I knew I should have been a writer. I should have listened to This Is This on my teachers, but I didn't.
I don't think I'd make a podcast about Canton unless I was out of the country.
Right? Yeah, right? Oh, man. What's that say for me, man? I should probably lock up, I guess.
No, you'll be all right.
Yeah, man. But I do.
Why do you think the story was like buried so much?
There's a lot of stories here that you probably don't talk about that should have been talked about more than they were. There's a little bit of that from here. I mean, just this county in general. I think how long did it take for anybody ever to get convicted of murder in this county? It was like, didn't Johnny Carson make a joke about it on the Tonight Show years ago?
Yeah.
If you ever want to commit murder, go to Fulton County or something. I think Illinois, he said it.
I think every small town claims it was about their town, but I think the truth is that it was about Fulton County. Yeah.
Oh man, you better believe it. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, there's a lot of there's just fuckery all over, man. It's probably not just here either. We like to just lay back at night and think that maybe it's for the better good, and I just don't know better.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think people got so upset when they started this?
Oh yeah, I think you got booted off one of the sites, like the what was it, the Canton site?
Yeah.
Somebody did. I saw some comments and stuff on there. I think that was the first time I'd ever made any comment about anything, because I'd read everything up to that point, and it was great, but the comments afterwards were like, I mean, some of them take your breath away. The shit people were saying, and some of the other names that were mentioned, people in the community. It was like they were saying all kinds of shit, man. I forget exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, they just mentioned some other official in the area or something like that, and they were trying to get all kinds of attention away from us as quick as they could, or not talk about it. And then it was like, next thing I know is you guys weren't in the group anymore and got booted or something. I was like, well, that's fucked up. They got real opinionative real quick, and that's the perfect platform for that. And that side of its own, there's a lot to get there.
Just a couple more things to ask you, then we can wrap it up. But I'm just curious, like, as far as the way that people responded about the case, but also like just even bringing up Donnie's name seems to have a negative effect on people. Almost like he's like some kind of boogeyman or something. Like when us doing this project, it's like unearthing like a vampire that was buried under 6 feet of concrete or something,
That would make sense. Because he definitely was kind of something out of his world. Part superhero, part, fuck, I don't know, man. He definitely had a way about it, but I don't think he did it. Only people like that love other people. I mean, that kind of shit. It's a different kind of. I mean, whether it's a brother or like a brother that's not by blood, and then that probably goes back to the association with some of the biker gangs and stuff like that. That's just a bond it can't be severed. And I really think I just about would have done everything but come clean if he had done it. Because he had every opportunity to, and if he was going to, it would have been with me. I feel like at that time, it didn't come out that way. He couldn't even, shit. He was a baby. Yeah. He just had in his eyes, he knew he was done. There was nothing he could do. He didn't have him by his side. And I think he gave up the minute he walked in that door. And I think that they might have known that, He's gonna fucking throw piss on the guards as they walk by and shit like that, because he hates people and they don't like him. I mean, you could see that. And it would just add no credibility for him, and it would just make things worse. And he was just a perfect guy for that.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I was too in that aspect, to be honest.
when we talked to, like, the guard who would take him into the courtroom every day during the trial, what he had to say was, like, he pictured him as guilty because he seemed so resigned to the fact. But now that I hear you saying what you're saying, like, he might have been resigned just for other reasons, not because he was actually guilty of it.
I think he felt like he was probably built for it. I mean, when I say that, I mean it's like prison and that life and all that. I mean, some people are just wired that way. They feel better under that kind of chaos, you know? It kind of shuts the voices off when you got other things to worry about sometimes. So I think he didn't want to cry is what he didn't want to do, whether it be to, you know, back then probably Mark or Cornfed or whoever would have been walking him over. And he probably would just be joking and kind of jolly and stuff because if he didn't, then he would fall like a baby. I think that was the last thing he was going to do because nobody wants to see you cry, man, you know, or you think that anyway. I think he would have felt like less of a man, and I think at any cost that wasn't going to happen. Prison was probably the better alternative.
Interesting. Yeah, he didn't really handle freedom very well. No, man. There's a lot of people like that. I mean, they feel more comfortable there, and they're probably willing to do heinous things to get there. I mean, in that kind of community, you really pay a big price if you don't conform. And
for sure.
And he didn't conform in any way at all. Maybe
there's more there to be seen. I can see it. I wasn't locked up on a whole different circumstance. I mean, I was basically paying for food. I was locked up with some shit I didn't do, basically. And it would have been the same, but a whole lot different when we were talking about the rest of his life. But he probably didn't figure he was going to die before he got out either.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a big enough guy and strong enough and just crazy enough. I think he probably could have took those licks and looked for 2023 to be his year and just kind of wrote it out. And people are wired that way. Some people are. It's a strange way to think, but you never felt less alone in a place like that when you're built for it, you know? People expect you to act a certain way, and you can, I guess.
I have a few letters that he had written friends from jail, and he seems like he has a very soft soul, you know? I mean, it's weird because it's so opposite from public persona.
You would think, yeah, man. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I can't imagine him being too awful great with words on paper even, but I could see him giving it a really good go. And I don't mean he was like a dumb guy or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, letters for him to write one at all, I would think is probably a stretch out of his character, maybe in some eyes.
He was definitely lonely, and he was reaching out for help, and he was just like completely abandoned by everybody, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was guilty immediately, and that just kind of threw me for a loop in the beginning anyway, because I got that all the time, and probably still would. You know what I mean? It would just be a bat an eyelash, and you already know whatever it may be. If you tie something else to it, and then the conclusions were already there for people before it ever happened. So it was like, you're guilty, man.
Yeah. All right, I just got one more question for you, but it's kind of a weird question, but we ask everybody this just to see what they'll say. You know, if you could say something to him right now, what would it be?
It would probably, that is kind of a weird question, but it probably, I wouldn't ask him whether he did it or not or anything like that. I'd probably just, hate to say thank him for the pointers, to be honest, or telling me the way it really was. Because I mean, he said it, man, they're going to have, I'm telling you, man, you just did not want to go there. They're going to fuck you, bro. You know what I mean? It was like, this bell just went off in my head. It was like, oh shit. At any cost, that ain't going to happen. But he was right. I mean, you're talking about the prison system and being that young, and I wasn't having Kool-Aid on my cheeks or anything like that. So I would probably thank him for that, to be honest, because I'd be in a whole different way if it hadn't been for him. So I'm grateful for that. I hope he didn't do it, you know, and I wish it wouldn't happen at all, but I guess it did. So.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, you made it through.
I think, man, is it weird that I don't have pants on? Yeah. Hey, funny, good looking, and witty. You sure you don't need me out there in Mexico? I can be on the plane in 20 minutes.
You got a passport?
Yeah, right. You already knew the answer to that question. Why don't we make it Puerto Rico? That's not American soil now, right? Yeah, that's what
you don't want to go to jail there, though. I've been in jail in Puerto Rico. That wasn't any fun.
Oh, man, I can't imagine. Man, I'm picturing this. All of a sudden, now I'm picturing like, God damn it, California something. I forget, man, but it was fucking great. Yeah, man. Well, I'd love to tell you that was fun, but I had to take a little bit, man. Some of that shit just, it kind of.
Are you sweating?
A little bit with him being the way I remember him and him being the way people talk about him. It's like, well, fuck, man, that just sucks to have opinions and memories sometimes. So I haven't thought about a lot of that shit for a long time, but I'm definitely going to go back and catch up and look at it in a little different light, maybe. And I have no doubt something else will come to mind, man. You know, I'm not trying to connect no dots either, but fuck, sometimes they just jump right in front of you. You're like, oh shit, just little things, you know.
Well, I feel like there's something hiding in plain sight in front of all of us because,
yeah. I
mean, you keep saying that you don't think you did it, but if you didn't do it, then somebody else did and they got away with it. And what have they been doing this whole time? You know, there's a billion questions to ask as far as that goes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they all point towards power and authority, in my opinion. Some of them. What's going on, buddy? I'm sorry, man. You wouldn't live when I'm doing the podcast right now. I apologize. No, come on in. It's fine. I'll put pants on. All right, man.
He was born by the roadside in a broken down carriage. Came into life on the run. Found on the doorstep of a nearby orphanage. No one saw. No one saw.
Spoon River Gothic is a production of Lonebird Media in association with CZ Studio and Radio Vérité. The show is produced by August Olsen, editing, directing, and producing by Cory Zimmerman, audio mastering and engineering by E. Mastered. Research is done by Anne-Marie Cannon, Chelseah Mesa, and me, Jinra Ilustrisimo. Spoon River Gothic is written and hosted by Cory Zimmerman. You can follow the show at czstudio.works and read the blog at spoonrivergothic.com. Show some love by leaving us a rating or review on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And stay tuned for the next episode as we dive deeper into the Donald Bull case. Thank you for listening. This is Spoon River Gothic, narrative of a double homicide.